Welcome in, inspiration patrons. Today I'm going to show you how to do the archetypal red exercise in wet on wet watercolors, and then we're going to take it into a theme that could be considered a painting or a representation of something. Usually I start with yellow in my paintings so that I know that my brush will be clean and because I have two sets of water. But today I'm going to start with some red, and I'm going to let this red begin to move on my paper from the inside of the form, and it's going to grow outwards. And as it grows, I'm experiencing, or I'm trying to experience, the red as a peaceful, powerful form that's showing its form to us. And I'm going to just soften the edges a little bit, but it's not a form that is actually meant to look like any particular thing at this time. And the reason I'm lightening it around the edges is so that it'll look like it's appearing here on the paper. And it may take you several passes with the color, getting a richer color each time, in order to get this sort of emanation of form that you find to be the right one for you. Now I'm doing a deeper red within the space, and this could even become two forms or more, but for now I'm just going to leave it like that, and then I'll wash my brush off and get it really clean so that we can use lemon yellow next. Now, after getting a really clean brush, I'm going to take some yellow and I'm going to allow this yellow to spread out behind the red. I'm careful not to touch. As you see, I don't want to create orange. I'm just looking for a yellow support here. And you can choose however much you want to cover with yellow. And now I'm going to show you something, how you can make a little purple, because that's going to go in the other white spaces. So what I want you to do is take a little bit of your Prussian blue and just put it into a cap or whatever you have nearby handy. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of the red. That looks like a little bit, doesn't it? But I'm going to wipe off most of it, because if I don't, red will quickly overpower this. And now you're going to see that I have a violet or a purple that I'm going to sweep into these areas that have just white left. That's Mr. Buttons snoring over there. Okay. And there you have it. Now we're going to look at this archetypal color exercise of red and notice that the undulating forms could suggest to us different kinds of fruits. And you might ask yourself, which fruits are red? Well, we have strawberries, we have raspberries, we have plums to a certain extent, apples, and of course tomatoes. And today I'd like to show you how to take this and transform it. Use the color as it is and transform it into some kind of tomato plant. And the way to do that for me is to start by getting a little bit of my thicker red, and I'm going to paint on top of this red where I see it's already round. And I think you can see that it's quite round here. And I don't know how this is going to go across like that. And I see some other round forms, maybe a smaller one over here. And certainly, you know, we could have a cluster of these tomatoes. Why not? And we're going to come back to the tomatoes, but generally I just want to get the form. And now I'm going to take away a little bit of the red, because I find that having a lighter red around the darker red is going to set off these lovely tomatoes for me. And besides, I know that I'm going to be having some kind of a stem coming up through the plant. So I'll go ahead and pull that in too. Now let's go on with the yellow and increase that yellow where we know we're going to have leaves. So we'll start up here where it's already yellow. And we'll actually let the yellow start to move right into the violet a bit. Kind of makes a tawny yellow color. And then we'll come back to our violet, this time with a smaller brush. And let's begin to pull out where we might have the tops of the plants. Those little tomato leaves. It's going to connect over. Let's bring the stem down too. And when we get up here to the yellows, we can start to get a green. And we don't have to do every single tomato leaf to believe that this is a tomato leaf. We just have to kind of get the general feel of them, which is kind of serrated on the edges. And of course, green inside. And that serrated edge is so important. And of course, let's bring this green on down into our tomatoes, unifying this set of fruits. And let's come back to the reds again and again to create the form of the tomato. Red upon a red background is kind of hard to see. So you really have to use the pigment. Here's a real beefsteak one. And how about this little one here? This one isn't quite as mature, so it's a smaller one. Now, I want you to notice that some places now you might like to get rid of a little bit of the red. This is perfectly fine. We're still using the feeling of the archetype of the red. even though we're reducing around the areas to try to lift off a little bit. And then what I'd like to do is replace those areas with some thick, pure yellow from the bottom of the jar so that I'll be able to get more green into this picture. Because I do love the violet and it's really pretty, but we do want our tomatoes to have green around them. So let's bring some blue right on top of this. And we can overlap. There's nothing to say that the greens can't overlap. We can even get little details as we work the picture drier and drier. And remember, wet on wet's going to take you 45 minutes to an hour to really dry up enough to hold the details. And so what you're seeing me do today is in a lot shorter time, and it may look a little bit more washed out than some of you will be able to achieve if you keep working the painting and getting the details. Embedding those tomatoes right into the vine. And as for the violet, I'd suggest that you just leave it light. Okay, now the last thing we're going to want to do is lift some highlight into each one of these. And what I'll do is just take a small brush and I'll paint on some water first. Then I'm going to wash my brush, wipe, and I'm going to swipe, lifting off the highlight. This is going to also show the roundness of the tomato, and each one will get a highlight. Now it looks really white when I first put it on, especially if I do put water on there, but as it dries, paint will go into the section that I've lifted and it won't look so harsh. Okay, and let's do one on this one too. Now, as yours is drying, you can come back and keep highlighting if you want, or you can just let it dry and it'll be quite a nice little rendition.